Diana, I got your number from your resume on LinkedIn. My name is Sarah, and I'm an old student of... And like you, we had a relationship. I don't know the circumstances of your relationship with him, but it concerns me to see his behavior continued long after I knew him. I'm curious if you would be willing to talk to me about your experience. If not, I respect that.
Sarah, I am at a loss of words, but also have so much to say. Yes, I would love to talk to you about this. Were you a student in Iowa? This is Diana.
This is Sarah.
And this is Blooming After Grooming, our podcast.
Anyways.
Yeah. Safety Sarah.
Safety Sarah says, slow the fuck down. Get off of your phone. Do not tailgate semi-trucks because you could get chopped in half like James Mansfield. So anyways.
Even if there's a Mansfield bar, it's still not safe.
It's not
still
safe.
Not safe.
Anyways, you should watch the documentary. It's really good because you think it's just going to be that story. And then there's this real twistaroon halfway through. And it's this whole other story that you didn't. She exposes a giant family secret that nobody knew about until this documentary came out. Yeah, it was really good. And I was like,
oh, juicy.
Yeah, this is a very sweet story. And then we should get back to what we're supposed to be doing here. But it is all about podcasts. She's listening to the podcast. She loves it. She's mad that we're doing Groom Scroll every other week. Loves it. She's like, I understand you have to protect yourself, but I'm selfishly bummed out because I really like them. She said she was listening to it in the car. And then her kids got in the car. And her boys are like 12 and 13 or maybe 14 and 12. I can't remember. They're about 2 years apart, but they're in that middle school, junior high age. They got in the car and she said she paused it, but the logo was still on the like display. And my older kid was like, what's that? And she was like, it's a podcast I'm listening to. And he was like, well, what's grooming? And so she explained him what grooming was. And he said, well, whose podcast is it? And she said, Sarah's. And he knows me. Like I've known this kid his whole life. And he said, well, why does Sarah have a podcast about that? And she's like, so I had to have a conversation about how this happened to you and how we were in school together and I was our teacher. And She said it was like this really great conversation. And then she talked about like, you know, if something ever happens to you or if you see something happen to somebody else, like this is what you need to do. And she talked about how like she knew at the time and she didn't know what to do and like how she has regrets about it and she doesn't want him to. And then apparently he asked, what if the kid is instigating it? And she goes, I think that's a really good question. I'm a 13-year-old kid's mind, right? Because it is that self-blame, right? That's that, oh, you're seeking this person out. And she was like, it is never a kid's fault, buddy. It is never a kid's fault. I like almost cried talking to her. And I was like, oh my God. She's like, dude, it was an amazing conversation. And I was really proud of him. And he asked all these really insightful questions and really think it made an imprint. And I was just like, oh my God. So Diana, you know what? I feel like we've done it. Like, I just feel like if we never get beyond this, like, I feel like we have made very big impressions in a few people's lives.
That makes me so happy. I can't even put into words. I love knowing that conversation took place and it's planting seeds in the school. It's so powerful. Like you went to that school and now here's a new generation of student boy who, of course he's asking like, well, what if the student's the one that came up a lot, you know, for me is like friends saying, well, it looked like you were okay and you were happy and you wanted it. And like, duh, that's what kids also look for. It's like, was my friend okay? You know, but they don't understand. They don't understand the psychological dynamic, the power, like all of it. They just see like, oh, my friend wants this and they're happy and that means things are okay. So I agree. I think that was a really important question to ask.
I know. I was like, oh, that's really, I just like to let you know when we hear good things. So yeah. Anyways, what are we supposed to be talking about today?
Well, actually, this kind of transitions nicely into an update that I want to give. And I guess it's up to you if you want to leave it all in. But I think it's something we should leave in. That's a really important conversation she was having. Follow up on a homework assignment we gave about sharing the podcast with a man in their life. Our male listenership went from 11% to 16%. Sarah, we're at 16% male audience.
Good job, dear listeners. I am impressed. That's very cool to hear. We talked about before, it's two to tango. We all have to learn. It is not just women's jobs to process these things and learn about them and work to improve the world around us. So that's exciting.
Yeah. So I wanted to share that. Look at us, just sharing good news with each other. So last time we were talking about the letters and the making our police report. Talked about going back and doing your trauma tour. I don't think we got into when you actually started talking to classmates. Did that
Correct.
happen
That's where we
around the same time?
left off. I think it would have been, because it would have been at the beginning of the Iowa Board of Educational Examiners investigation. They were asking us to supply them, each state, right, was asking us to supply them with as much evidence as we could dig up. And we kind of talked last time about, the physical stuff, to find our own evidence that we had, and you had talked about not having as much as you thought you had because you were really protecting him. And I had unfortunately destroyed a lot of stuff that I had because I was trying not to drag it around with me anymore. I had some stuff. I had some journal entries that I had written in high school that were dated, which thank God I was a weirdo that dated my sketchbook journal entries in high school. That really helped align my timelines of my report and everything. But I would say the biggest piece of evidence besides our own personal testimony was the written statements by other classmates that we ended up getting. And that was kind of, where you and I reaching back out to former classmates. The reason we did it, we weren't doing it just to like stir the pot or cause trouble or get attention, which some assholes thought we were. So,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Who goes first? Diana, how did you, well, you kind of mentioned it last time, I think. You put out a Facebook post on a class alumni group, correct?
Yes, I wanted to wait until after the police, because we wanted to see what would come out of this police investigation. And yes, after the end of July, when the detective called me and said that was it. And this was after we sent our letters too. So we sent our letters in early August. And yeah, sometime around the middle of August, I went to my high school's alumni Facebook page and tagged, I guess I don't know how Facebook works, but I tagged another group in my post. So there is the main alumni page, and then there's the class of 2008 page. And so I posted in the main page, but I tagged that group, and I actually have it pulled up here so I can read it to y'all if I can find it. Actually, this was August 19th. 2022. Blank class of 2008. Anyone still active on here? Not sure how to begin this because I barely knew any of you and doubtfully you knew me. So this disclosure is a bit scary with a lot of Y's, but important nonetheless. Okay, so if you remember me, you might also remember that I had a relationship with a teacher. If you have any recollections of me and him during high school, I ask that you please get in touch with me. That is, if you don't mind supporting my case since removing him from the school and access to kids. Or maybe you have a younger sibling or a friend who was a student of his at some point after 2008. Or maybe you are a parent in the district now or know people who might be hearing things going on in the community. Either way, please reach out if you think you can be helpful. And then I provide my email address and say crazy times, hoping y'all have been well, safe, and somewhat sane. So that's what I posted, and within hours I got emails.
How stressful was it putting that post up?
That I think was more stressful to me. I felt it more in my body than I did making the police report. Because I didn't talk to really a lot of people in high school. Like I didn't know if anyone would remember me. I didn't know how it would be received, because I think it's a lot easier to be judgmental of people you don't know and be like, oh yeah, I remember hearing about that. But from what I remembered, I didn't know how people would respond. And within the same day, I got emails from the people that I kind of expected to, mainly like former classmates from journalism.
I agree. Like I didn't have like a my class has like an alumni Facebook group, but no one ever fucking looks at it and no one ever comments on it or anything. So I, instead of doing one mass call out for people's memories, individually IM'd every single person in my class. Now, granted, I have a very small class. Like we're talking, I think under 30 people, right? And I couldn't find every single person on Facebook, but I found like a majority. But I literally had to get out my yearbook and sit down there and be like, A through whatever the hell. Well, we did have a Z. So A through Z of my classmates, and one by one find them through Facebook, friend them, because when you message people that you're not friends with, it goes into some, folder no one ever sees.
Yeah.
Friend them, wait for them to like accept my friendship, which some didn't because either they don't like me or don't remember me or they're never on Facebook. And then be like, hey, you person I haven't seen in 20 years, can we talk about really heavy shit? And I think I said, hey, I know this is out of nowhere and a serious topic, but as you may have known, I had a, in quotation marks, relationship with one of our teachers back in 2004. I'm currently working on having his license pulled for sexual misconduct with a student. I'm curious if you ever saw anything between him, myself, or anyone else while you were in school. I hope you are well. And that's what I just said to everybody. And it was really stressful. I agree with you. I think reaching out to the police feels intense, and like this is in a very official way, but there's a certain amount of expectation of bedside manner, right? Somewhat trauma training, or if they seriously mishandle it, you have an ability to be like, motherfucker, you mishandled this and now I can take it to your manager or something. Or like, if it was really mishandled, there was kind of a protective, or at least an implied protective layer there. But when you're messaging your classmates, you've no idea how anyone's going to respond to you. And I think I was just really worried people were going to be mean or like aggressive or accusatory. I was pleasantly surprised. I was very wrong. And I had a few conversations that weren't the best, but nobody, at least to me, I'm sure shit was said behind my back, but nobody to my face called me a liar or accused me of causing the problem or saying that I seduced him. I don't know. I really expected the worst out of the experience. Like I was really dreading it. And honestly, I think it was a really healing experience by the end of it, but it was like 30 individually really awkward fucking conversations.
Wow. How long did that take you? Was it all, did you just like, or did you like pump yourself up one morning and you were like, all right, I'm just going to crank through these? Or did you take little breaks? Like, wow, what a day.
Yeah. Well, I mean, anybody I was already connected to, I think I just blanket hit them all at the same time. And then I spent a lot of time searching for people I wasn't already connected with. And then as those people would accept my friend requests, I would message them. So anybody that I had to add new as friends was more of a trickle. But yeah, everybody else, it was just like, boom. I just started a really heavy conversation with like 13 people at the same time. I wanted the information. Like I wanted to get it over to the Iowa board as quickly as I could so that they could get the investigation down. Because the way that it works in Iowa is that there is a monthly board meeting and there's a lot of steps that go into it. Like they have to get your report and then you have to wait till the next board meeting for them to decide whether or not your report is valid enough for them to officially open an investigation. And then you have to wait another month till the next board meeting for them to like decide who's going to be in charge of that investigation. Like it's just slow. Like it's just a lot of processes. So I was trying to do it as fast as I could because I was seeing how slow the process was going to be. And I didn't want it to drag out. And I really didn't want it to be like, oh, they don't find him guilty or they don't think they have enough. And then all of a sudden I realized there's this person I didn't reach out to and they've got a shitload of personal experience that they can come forward to help it out. So yeah, I just like everything with this story went off the deep end right away. Just
yeah,
but you did too. Well, you messaged like hundreds of people on a Facebook group.
Well, and I think so. A little just reminder: the police investigation was very much something like you were interviewed once, but it was something that was mainly all in Illinois and about what happened to me. And I feel like afterwards, you kind of got this chance to now start doing something. Like you had the opportunity to now make a report to the Iowa Board of Education examiners. And I think that's also why we were getting information trying to get information because we sent the letters in early August. I think we forgot to mention one of the things that the superintendent said when he called both of us is he said he was going to make the report to DCFS, Department of Child and Family Services, and that there would be a third-party investigator investigating this claim, this report. And so we were trying to get information. I know I was specifically trying to get information in anticipation of this third-party investigation. It was not the most comfortable thing to put yourself out there in such a way. And I didn't name his name, like I didn't name his name or anything. I was really just going off, okay, well, I'm assuming that people are going to see my name and maybe remember me and remember something about me and a teacher.
I don't know if you had this experience, because I also didn't say his name because I didn't want it to be like I'm planting seeds or any, you know what I mean? I wanted it to be like, if anyone's scrutinizing this, like it needs to be very much like these people's, their own individual memories. I was surprised by the number of people that I went to school with that had no idea it had ever happened. I was really surprised by that.
That surprises me too.
Yeah.
Because there weren't that many of you.
No. And there were a few that were like, what? Like, I didn't know about that. And I was just like, where the hell were you, man? Because like, it's a small town and like, everybody knows everybody's business. So I was surprised by that. And I think that goes back to what I've talked to before of, I had a lot of discomfort around my hometown after my abuse, because in my mind, I had this idea of how other people saw me as a girl that slept with the teacher, right? And then I realized that wasn't how people saw me, because there was a lot of them that never even knew that it had happened. And then some of the people that did know just were like, that guy's a piece of shit, like weren't reflecting it back on me. And I'm sure there is a percentage of people that is how they saw me or still see me. But I had really blown that out of proportion in my own mind. Like, it's like how I was identifying myself and I was projecting it on other people. And so I found it was really helpful to dismantle that story in my head by going through and having these conversations with people, even though ironically I was informing more people about it. Getting to have those one-on-one conversations. I don't know. I just don't think it's an experience that a lot of victims of crimes probably have, is to like one-on-one talk to the people that are around them at that time about what happened to them and hopefully humanize the story to other people a little bit more.
Yeah. I know you mentioned that there were some responses that were not the best, but were there any that surprised you or any that are super memorable?
I had a few male classmates that were very not surprised. And they were like, that guy was a piece of shit. That guy was a huge creep. Or were straight up like, I wanted to kick that guy's ass all the time because he was such a jerk to everybody. Like, I guess I was surprised by how much he had hurt other kids. Like, I didn't see it at the time. And I hadn't really thought about it as an adult because I was thinking very much solely about my experience and what he did to me. But there was one classmate that was like, I barely remember anything about high school. Like, he was like, I've blocked it all out. It was so horrible. And not just the teacher, like other classmates, like just bullying that he experienced. And it was awful. I just felt so bad for him. And it was a really intense conversation. And at a certain point, I apologized to him of like, I'm sure I bullied you. You know what I mean? Like, I'm sure we were all kids. Like, I'm sure I said some nasty shit to you, or I didn't defend you, or I laughed when someone made a joke. And so there was just like other healing that happened through these conversations that I really didn't expect to have happen, and he was super like, no, you're not one of the people that, stands out in my mind. I'm like, yeah, but I remember people saying shit about you. You know what I mean? Like, and I don't remember ever coming to your defense. Like, yeah. Because we were kids, not that makes it okay, but it's like,
it's hard to do when you're a kid.
It is. And it's hard to understand the ramifications, because no one was talking about bullying in fucking 2001. Like, that wasn't gave a shit. Like, it just, and I also feel like sometimes my school was maybe worse than others. I feel like Carl, my husband, is always like, damn, like shit didn't happen at my school. Or he's like, or if it did, I didn't know about it. So yeah, there were some unexpected conversations, like other kids' trauma that I had been totally oblivious to, which I think was kind of nice to be able to be on both sides of that, because I think you and I coming forward made other people feel bad for not standing up for us, not seeing it, and then to have that flipped on me and to realize I also didn't see shit that was happening with other kids. I think it's just a very good reminder of like the cliche of everyone's going through something, and maybe give everybody around you some grace, because you don't really know what's happening in their lives at school or at home. And I think there was one male student that literally said, well, I knew what was happening with you, but it was so normalized in our school, I didn't think anything of it. And he literally said on his own, that whole school, that whole town groomed all of us. And I was like, damn. I was like, good job. Like he knew it, you know, like, so I will say I was impressed by some of the male classmates that I talked to. Like they handled it better than I would have expected them to, or they were more candid in the conversations than I expected them to be. How about you? Did you have any that were really like unexpected outcomes as far as the conversations went?
I didn't expect, so it was through the emails that I got. Most of them were from other now women, female classmates. I did get one from a male classmate who actually is the student that I have referenced. He was the kid that was in the computer lab the day that the teacher kissed me, and I was telling in the computer lab that I have a secret that he wrote in. I remember, and I don't know if it was the same day or if it was just that week, like after I was trying to talk to people, because after the emails, like I had arranged quite a few phone calls with people who had reached out and who were willing, but it was all a lot. And I remember calling you and being in tears and drunk. I was drunk at this point. And just being like, this is so much. And I don't remember much of the phone call, but I just remember crying and I remember I was in Dan's bathroom. Like I was just in the dark, just like feeling so upset about all the responses I was getting. And I think going back to your question, I wasn't expecting to be faced with the harm, like you were saying, the harm that he did to other students. Even though it wasn't, some of the harm for sure was sexual in nature, but it didn't cross into like sexual physical touch or penetration. There was still harm that he did, comments he made. Like he told a student, I can't wait until you're 18 so you could come watch movies in my apartment. And the fact that like she still remembers that and is still uncomfortable about that, like that is harm, you know, like, and there's another student who I think literally said, like, I thought about that dynamic with him every week since I graduated high school. Like she's now, you know, she's my age, she's in her 30s. And
didn't one of them say they were like actively going to therapy and to process their trauma about shit he said to them?
I think that was someone who wrote into the website, which we haven't talked about yet, but the website, because I never read that one. And I think that was someone who we tried to see if they were willing to talk. So I'm just going to read the whole email and I'll just cut out what doesn't make sense in this part of the podcast. Hi, Diana. So this was sent to me that day. Hi, Diana. I'm not quite sure what to say. Blank sent me a screenshot of your post regarding your relationship with a certain teacher because he knew I could corroborate your story. I was class of 2009. I had heard the rumors about the two of you, and though nothing I experienced progressed that far, I also had some experiences where he clearly crossed the boundary of what was appropriate for teacher-student relationships. Car rides alone with him on journalism field trips, him calling me when he knew I was in emotional distress, and then after I graduated, he would text me occasionally and definitely said some appropriate things. Nothing illegal happened, and I've never said anything because, well, I did enjoy the attention and have always felt I encouraged him. Now that I'm an educator myself and recognize that he as the adult should have set a boundary way before any of that stuff happened. I actually didn't apply for an opening at the school because I knew that would have meant working with him. I don't know if any of this helps. I just wanted to reach out and let you know that I believe you and I'm behind you, and I think you're brave for coming forward.
That's crazy to just think of, like, years later, this guy's behavior stopped that person from applying for a career path at that school district, right? Because they were still so uncomfortable with the idea of having to be in the same space as him that they avoided applying for a job that might have been a great fit for them. Could have been a great fit for the school district.
And in being in your hometown.
Yeah. Like the ripple effect of his behavior with other kids. Wasn't expecting that. Yeah. Because even in my own classmates, like there was one that was like, yeah, he was horrible to me. Like he bullied me. He made fun of me. And then there was shit that started to come back in my memory. I was like, oh my God. I remember he had this like photocopy. I don't know if it was like an actual photocopy or if it was like a picture from a magazine, but it looked like a photocopy of like an adult man's hairy belly, like their belly button. And he had it taped up on his wall in his classroom by the clock or something. And then at one point, he taped a picture of my classmate's face above it. So it looked like it was his hairy belly, and just like bullied the fuck out of this kid. Like, he had a picture of one of the students taped up on the wall trying to like make fun of their body essentially in front of all of the other classes. And I had completely forgotten about it until this classmate started talking about it. And I was like, oh my God, dude, he was such a dick. Like, he was such a bully and he was so mean. And that's kind of how he was, though. He was very like, either you loved him or you hated him. There was no middle ground with that guy. And so it was like, you were either indoctrinated and you were drinking the Kool-Aid, or you had his fucking number and then he treated you like shit. Like, the kids that actually had their heads out of the sand and could see him for what he was were treated so poorly because they weren't feeding his ego. They weren't playing his game. And those are the kids that also got harmed because he was terrible to them and like caused, there was just, everyone was getting harmed. There was just nobody not getting harmed one way or another by this guy. And one of the conversations I had with a classmate that I will say was one of the harder conversations, but also I think a really interesting conversation, was with a male classmate. And I reached out to him, same intro that I had read before with everybody else. And he immediately was like, not really like questioning me, but like a little bit, you know what I mean? Kind of being like, oh, well, are you sure? Or, oh, are you this? And like, not terrible pushing back, but definitely very different vibe than everybody else that I had talked to so far. Then, I started kind of saying, yeah, and this person can back up my story. Like, this is another person that you know and trust. Like, you can talk to them. They can corroborate what I'm saying. Like, and he did some of the classic, like, well, you're going to ruin his career. And I was like, oh, he is going to ruin his career because he made the choice to have sexual contact with 2 minors. It's on him. I am just working to have him held accountable for the actions he decided to take. And then he was like, oh yeah, I guess that's true. So it was really weird. It was like I was in person, live, co-processing with somebody who had obviously never had to think about these things, ask these questions, critically really question people around him. And it was hard and it wasn't the best, but like in the end, I think it was a really fruitful conversation because, at some point I remember him saying, well, God, he was my favorite teacher. And then that's when it clicked for me where I realized like, oh, I am like dismantling this guy's entire idea of who this person was. And yeah, it's going to take him a minute. Like, he's not going to just, shift gears and be able to say, oh yeah, okay, yeah, no, that makes sense. It's like he had this perception that this person was smart and witty and funny and friendly.
Yeah.
And
someone he looked up to.
Yeah. And somebody that made him feel cool and made him feel smart, and someone he looked up to. And literally he said he was my favorite teacher. And I remember thinking like, that would be really crushing if you had your favorite teacher and you found out that this is the truth of who they were. It would be really hard, so then it was just this strange thing where I had to kind of be like, yeah, dude, he groomed you as well. And I remember him being like, what do you mean? And I'm like, he groomed you into thinking that he was a good person. Like, you were also harmed. You weren't harmed in the same way that I was harmed, but you feel bamboozled. You feel like a fool because you didn't see these things, or you feel creeped out that what does it say about you that you liked a person that abused minors? Like, this is harm that's happening to you right now. So that conversation, while difficult in the moment, I think was really fruitful for me to have, because it really helped me, I think, have a better understanding of how and why people mishandle these conversations. And I think it gave me a little bit more grace for when I do have these conversations with people if they don't go awesome. Not saying that people should not challenge themselves and do better, but like it really helped me to kind of understand, okay, this person isn't being an asshole. They literally they're actively having to shift gears right now. They are having to realign realities while we're texting over Facebook. And I have to have a little grace that that's going to take them a minute. Right. And then that's going to be a hard transition for them. And by the end of it, I ended up being like, if you ever need to talk, and then it's like, I was holding space for him, and he was like, well, now I feel bad because I should be consoling you. You should be consoling me. And I was like, it doesn't matter, dude. Like, you're a human being. I'm a human being. I care about you. And I think that's what's also different for you and I about this experience of talking to classmates is I went through K through 12 in one building.
Yeah.
I've known my classmates since I was 5 years old, like the same core set of people. So we just have so much history together. And there is like a certain level of almost sibling-esque closeness there because we know each other's families. There's just a lot of history that I think it made those conversations probably more honest and open than they would have been if I had gone to like a big school like you went to. And it was different because you put out a blanket statement and people had to reach out to you, whereas I was like individually knocking on people's digital door. And so I think maybe that made a difference as well. Did you ever have anybody not reach out to say, hey, I had an experience, but to reach out to kind of argue with you? Like, did you have anybody try to put you on blast directly?
There was someone who commented on my original post and said something like, wow, this isn't the appropriate place for this. Can admins take it down right away? And someone who actually I went to elementary, it's funny, I went to elementary school with him. I went to junior high with him, went to high school with him. We were never like really friends, but like I've always known of him. And he kind of came to my defense on it, which I really appreciated. And then we were both kind of like, did you even Mean Girls moment? She doesn't even go here. Like, who are you?
She doesn't even go here. Shit, you should have put that GIF on there. That would have been fucking great. She doesn't even go here. But also,
like,
again,
who the fuck are you?
What a strange reaction.
Yeah.
You know, what a strange reaction. And I think it does go to show like how uncomfortable this subject makes people and how they will avoid it. But it's like, why would your instinct be shut this down?
Because they want to keep the memories of that school happy and lighthearted and rah, school pride, go mascot, you know.
See, but and to me, yeah. I felt like, I'm not a big school spirit. You can ask Carl. I am always the queen of like, that's weird. Why are you wearing your like alma mater fucking shirt or your hat? Or that's not me. It's never been me. I was always the salty goth at the fucking pep rally, sitting at the top bleacher in my trench coat, being like, I'm just too cool for all this. Yeah. I'm not standing during the national anthem. Like that was kind of always my salty vibe. Oh yeah. To me, reconnecting with my classmates, having these conversations, having 90% of those conversations be really fucking great conversations was the closest I think I've ever felt to school pride. Because it felt like we are reconnecting and we are all saying this thing was fucked up. And that is like the closest I feel like I've ever had to like class pride. And I'm so glad that I did that. And I reached out to those people when I did. Then we ended up having a 20th year high school reunion the following fall. I don't know that I would have been able to go to that. Like if I hadn't had those conversations with those people, I think I would have been too in my head about it. Not that I wasn't nervous going into that because I was like, is everybody going to ask about it? Is no one going to ask about it? Is that all anyone's going to be thinking about? You know, I got in my head about it, but like we had a fabulous time. It was so much fun. And like not everybody came. We had like maybe half the class showed out, but like it was a hoot and a half and it was really cool. And everybody was like, we should do this every year. Like everyone was so happy. You know, not to say that terrible things didn't happen to people, and certain people didn't come because they had experienced so much bullying that they didn't want to be around those people, which I also really respected. But no, it's funny. I feel like trying to call out the bad shit in some way made me feel closer with my class than trying to only reflect back on the good shit.
I'm looking at my project journal where I wrote all my notes since you contacted me. After, like, once I did the Facebook post and started reading the emails and having phone calls with my former classmates, I have a note in here that says, I'm finally seeing my classmates as peers, as people I'm allowed to connect with. Especially reading emails from former journalism classmates, you know, he did create an intense environment. Like people were in competition with each other. He took the high school newspaper so seriously. It was a high stress class. Yeah. And so it was like a tight knit group, and he made me feel like I was not one of them. And just after like talking with some of my former classmates, it just really it really hurt. Like it really hit hard realizing how much of my high school experience he really robbed me of. And
Yeah.
maybe I would have had more friends, if I wasn't being groomed by my high school English teacher, my junior and senior year. But yeah, it was really hard to, like, I remember having a feeling of like, oh yeah, like we could have been friends.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I agree, because he did definitely talk down to about other students to both of us. I've said it before, but he literally called me a pearl among swine in reference to my classmates. He would tell stories about teachers talking about students behind their back, kind of gossiping about the students, but then was telling me what all the teachers were saying. So then it was like I had this access I shouldn't have had to the teacher side of the world of everything. I mean, moot point when your teacher's also sleeping with you. But like, in retrospect, I look back and I'm like, well, that's fucked up. You also shouldn't have been telling me this stuff. And then really did make you feel, because that's grooming, right? And that's like abusive relationship is like, it's us against the world, and it's isolation. And yeah, I would agree. It made it hard to kind of see yourself as one of them in a lot of ways. And then even just actively, like you were saying before with the classmate, you told you had a secret. They said something, triggered him to get all mad at you. Is like, you can't talk to anybody about it. There's just all these secrets you're trying to keep. You can't engage with your classmates in the same way that you're engaging with everybody else. He's the only one that knows all these different truths. And it really creates a wall between you and those other people. And I know for like myself, one of my craziest incidents was when I was still in high school. The abuse had started. I was at his apartment because I was like sleeping at his apartment on school nights, which in retrospect, I have so many questions about. Where were the grownups? I don't understand. I don't know. Anyways, but I was at his apartment. We had just had sex, which I hate saying and admitting that it happened, but it is what it is because it skeezes me out. And it was, a few weeks or a month or so before the end of the school year, because my abuse started February of my senior year, really actively, you know what I mean? Like crossing lines, physical, sexual contact was February. Anyways, so it was coming around to like spring. It was getting warm out and the bedroom window was open and we were laying in bed. And I remember him screaming, "I love summer," out the bedroom window, because he was talking about like, I can't wait till it's summer and we won't have to hide anymore and we can go do this and we can do that and I won't be working and we can go on these vacations and blah, blah, blah. He was just all excited about summer. And then like, I don't know, 30 seconds, maybe a minute later, there's someone's knocking on his apartment door. So I'm in the back bedroom. And it's like hallway goes down past the bathroom into the living room. And then the front door is in the living room. And he literally like, someone's knocking on the door. And then they start yelling. It's my classmate. My male classmate is at his door, which I also now have questions about of why was he at this teacher's apartment at like 9:00 on a Thursday night or something. Like it was a school night and it was late, like dark outside. And he's banging on the door and yelling the teacher's name, like goofing around, like just trying to like get his attention. And so the teacher shot up out of bed. And I remember him like throwing like an A shirt, like an undershirt on, and maybe just his boxers or something, literally shoving me under his bed and telling me to hide and not to talk and that I wasn't to come out of the room, physically hiding me under his bed. And then closing the bedroom door and running down the hallway and going to answer the door, which again, in retrospect, why would you answer the door? Like, doesn't make any fucking sense. And so he went, answer the door, and there's my classmate. I can hear the whole conversation. And he is like, "Oh, what you doing, buddy?" Like talking to the teacher, like, "Oh, what are you up to?" And the teacher was like, "I'm a little busy here, bud." Like something like that. Well, my purse and my shoes were right there at his front door. And if this classmate had paid any attention to me when we were in high school, they would have known they were mine. Because like I was the art kid. So I had like skater shoes and they were covered in paint. And I had drawn all over them and written all over them. And I had a purse that was like, God, it's such an early 2000s, like a ugly, it had like pinup girls on it and like rhinestones. It was just like this really weird gaudy purse. But like the only girl, Yes, the only girl in the school with a pinup girl rhinestone purse and skater
Uh-huh.
shoes covered in paint. So like, and my car was parked in the back. He had parked like 2 cars away from my car. And I had a giant foot long wide neon green Weezer sticker in the back of my windshield. Like, if this kid had ever paid attention to me, he would have known it was me. And like, I've never talked to him about it. He was one of the students I never was able to get in touch with throughout the investigation. But so I've always wondered, like, did he know it was me and he never said anything? Or was he just so oblivious to my existence that he just didn't put the pieces together? Eventually, the teacher was like, yeah, I've got somebody here. You need to go. And the student was like, oh, good going, buddy. And it's like, looking back, it's just so inappropriate because he was like clearly in his underwear. You know what I mean? And it's like that this student was like, oh, go and get you some, buddy. Like, fucking score,
So
bro.
weird. Ew,
It's
gross.
so gross in retrospect. And I look back at it now and I'm like, what a fucked up experience that I had to
Yes.
hide under my teacher's bed from my classmates, and then was sworn to like never talk about it. And then it was like, so then after that I had to park my car at the Hobby Lobby, which was just down the like road, and he would come and get me from the Hobby Lobby so that my car was not parked behind his apartment, because all of these students knew where his apartment was and were showing up to his apartment. Like, all these boys were showing up to his apartment building after school. And so then
weird.
it like wasn't safe. I know. And I had never questioned that until the investigation. And I don't remember if it was the Illinois or the Iowa police, but they were like, why the fuck was that kid at his apartment? And I'm like, I don't know. And it kind of goes back to what we were talking about before of like, you have tunnel vision of your own abuse, right? And sometimes you don't step back to see the bigger picture of like, well, why was that kid there? Like, what was going on in that kid's life? They felt that it was appropriate to be at his apartment. What was going on in their life that they were alone late at night and they felt like their adult male teacher's apartment was the place that they needed to go? Like, was he okay? Was he looking for help for something? Or was he just like being
Was he alone?
He was alone.
Or was he with another? It was just him then.
It was just
knocking on the
him
door of this
knocking on
teacher.
the door of the teacher's apartment at like 9 o'clock at night. I remember coming into school the next day and he kept saying, so who's Summer? He thought when the teacher screamed, I love Summer out the window, that it was the woman's name.
Oh, okay.
So I've always wanted to talk to the student because I'm like, motherfucker. Like, we both have sides of the same story. Like, it feels like the most proof I could ever have of just like, dude, this happened. Like, how would I know the other half of that story? You know what I mean? Unless
I wonder
have
if he even
person.
remembers.
I don't
that,
know.
You know.
I know, right? Because it might be one of those things where he doesn't remember it. Because to him, it's not a memorable. No, I have shit that people say all the time about stuff we did in high school. I'm like, I don't remember that. Like, because it doesn't stand out into your mind. But yeah, so I remember him really hassling the teacher and joking that he was dating a woman named Summer for like the last month of our senior year because he thought he was yelling that he loved her out the window. Did you reach out to any teachers, to any former teachers in your...
Hello, sweet listeners. We are going to pause right here because this episode ended up being way longer than Sarah and I thought it was going to be. So we're going to split it up into parts 1 and 2. Next week, we will answer the question that Sarah asked at the end of this episode, which was, did either one of us reach out to any teachers as we were archiving our life to find evidence for the school investigation? Okay, thanks for listening. See you then.